Welcome back to another episode of the SaaS Buyers Club. I'm your host, Omeed, and I'm here this week with my guest, Chad Brown. Chad is a coach for founders, and today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest challenges that founders face from Chad's perspective is that they don't understand and they aren't prepared for the fact that an exit will be a crisis. And so that's what we're going to be talking about this week. Chad, really excited to have you here. Honored. Thanks for joining, man.
Thanks for having me, Omeed. I'm excited to be here. I love the energy already.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about who Chad is, what Chad does. Let us cozy up to you and get to know you a little bit.
Yeah. One of the ways that I talk about this is that I'm a corner man for founders. I really love to be with founders in a meaningful way in the challenge of building something meaningful. Look, everybody that I work with started this thing because they love what they're doing. They love their idea. They want to give it to the world. And they're standing up saying like, I'll go through hell to get this thing going and to get it out there. And the reward hopefully will be there. But it's just, there's such an interesting demographic of human beings. I'm one myself. That's how I got into this work. And we can dive into that story if you want to. But it was through a lot of failure, a lot of missteps, and a lot of poor leadership that got me into the place where now I coach founders on their leadership and the way that they relate to the things that are most important to them and finding a place for their business.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your founder journey, just so, so that people can kind of relate on that front. I hear, that you got to a place of coaching founders because you were a founder yourself. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah. In 2009, I suffered a devastating loss in the real estate market. I had created a real estate investment company where I'd pooled investors in new construction projects and condo conversion projects. At the time, we were holding about 37 units in total, some of those $1 million plus houses, some of them condo conversions. And as you know, the market fell out and we were over leveraged, undereducated, and I lost everything personally, me, my wife, and our baby girl at the time. And that was the second darkest time of my life. There were so many things that I made up about that situation, about how I am wrong, bad, broken, all of those sort of things. And it was a real challenge. I went into a deep depression. And then I made a decision at that time. I wasn't going to do anything just for money again. I was only going to do it if I loved it. And so I remembered that I loved playing with video cameras in high school and never had considered that could possibly be a career path. Now, what's important about this story and the timing of this story is like 2010, 2011, social media is really starting to get some momentum. Not only social media, but video on social media is really starting to get some momentum. And the video equipment at this time was groundbreaking. When you could shoot a cinematic video with a DSLR handheld camera that looked like a movie. So it was this beautiful lightning in a bottle moment where I decided I was going to start a video production company, moved out to Southern California, did that, and almost immediately saw a lot of success, became an industry leader, speaking from stages, working with a lot of really big brands on some pretty significant campaigns, specializing in we're going to give you an online presence. We're going to give you a social media presence. This was like brand new for brands, right? And so that's what we did. We built it fast. I say we because I had a business partner in it at this time, and built it really fast, created a studio, got some employees, editors, directors of photography, and just hit the ground running. And in all of the excitement and all of the ego of what a successful business can do to you, I let it take over my life. And in that time of building up this business, we'd had another daughter. We'd moved out to Southern California where we had no community. And my wife was essentially a single mother. I was traveling almost 300 days out of the year. And when I wasn't traveling, I was in the studio making things happen. Under the lie that I was telling myself that I was doing it for them, which ultimately was bullshit. That was my own bullshit. I was telling myself that I was doing it for them, but really I was so caught up in the way that I looked as a successful founder entrepreneur. And I was a terrible boss. We ran people into the ground. We used them like tools, overworked them, underpaid them. We thought that we felt like they should be grateful just to have the opportunities we were affording them, because most of the people that worked for us wanted nothing more than to have a career for themselves in this creative industry of filmmaking, video production. And we took advantage of that. I was not proud of the husband that I'd become. I was not proud of the father that I'd become. I was absentee. I was frustrated. I was on edge. And essentially just let go of everything that was important to me for whatever this thing was doing for me. It was a drug. And that culminated to a point where we had some breakdowns. Me and my partner had some pretty significant breakdowns. We lost a couple contracts, and it was a real check. It was like a real gut check of okay, what are you doing here, man? When all of this is gone, what it showed me is essentially this could all disappear tomorrow. And then what do you have? You have a broken family, broken home. You've got no friendships. You've got no hobbies. And what would you be left? And that was a wake up call. But I didn't know how to get out of it. And it
was the losing of contracts that showed you that, or what was it that showed you that?
It was a culmination of a few things. So, and I think they all agitated each other, which was we lost a few significant contracts, namely with Volkswagen. We were their media team for their entire U.S. activations, which was crazy. On any given weekend, we had 4 teams out creating content around an activation. That could be a marathon. That could be a Dave Matthews Band festival. It could be, anything. So it was significant. It was okay, that was 60% or 50. I don't think it was that high. I think it was 48% of our revenue. It's all right, well, that's a hit.
Why did you lose that contract? Because it sounded like it was going well.
Oh, they're cutthroat. They're just looking for the next deal, and fresh. That's marketing. Marketing. I mean, my experience of marketing, I won't speak for everybody, is that the idea of fresh or new is more important than the idea of effective.
So you lost. Go ahead.
I
was going to say, you lost this contract that was 48% of your revenue, because that was one of the factors that contributed to highlighting the fact that, hey, this could all come crumbling down. What's left? It highlighted the priority of your family and creating a life that you, like you said, you're never going to do anything for money again. But it sounds like you kind of fell back into the trap of
100%, man. 1,000%. Yeah. It was that, and then me and my partner got into deep conflict around a few things that were pretty fundamental to the business, and some conflict in some things that were not inside the business. And then I think I was starting to wake up. My wife was letting me know in not uncertain ways that this was not going to work for very long. And look, she's always been loyal. She's always been my biggest fan and champion. And so it wasn't a threat of leaving me or anything like that, but she was like, this isn't going to work. Yeah, this is not the life I'm going to live for the next however long. So God bless, man.
This ain't it.
Amazing. Yep, that's right. That's exactly right. So, but I did not know. It was completely confusing to me how to get out of this situation. I felt stuck. I felt like I was between a rock and a hard place, which is where so many founders find me, is they feel like they don't have a lot of options, and they've built this thing that is now becoming bigger than them. And if they're not willing to pull the plug because, shit, look at everything that I've done to build this thing, but they also know that they can't sustain their life in this way. And so I knew we needed to get outside help. So I hired a coach on a whim. I had never worked with a coach. I didn't even know, honestly, didn't even know a business coach was a thing. And we let one of our partners know, one of our graphic design partners know that we were being really challenged and that we needed a resource. And they just so happened to know this business coach. They're like, well, you guys should really check this guy out. And so we hired him. And we thought he was going to come in and be like, hey, put this system here and, talk to your employees this way and look for this to hire, blah, 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 blah. And we did do that, but not until we got our minds right. And if he would have come in and just given us systems and answers, I would have recreated it again and again and again, just like I did the last time I had an epic failure. But he did not. He came in and he challenged me deeply. He said I was lying to myself. And that when he told me that I was lying to myself, that was probably the most transformational moment of my life. Because never before had I considered that maybe I wasn't telling myself the truth. And that softened my heart. That was like a violent hit to the ego. And I was all ears after that. Not always. I'm not trying to paint a picture that I was perfect after that, but I was in. I was in 100%.
That moment he got you.
And, yeah, because he was the first person to speak some real truth to me, man. And be like, look, listen, you're not as amazing as you think you are. I have this thing, and this is going to be a weird concept for some people listening to this. I have this thing. You are nothing. You are no thing. And if you are nothing, that's when you can actually make something meaningful happen in the world. But I was everything.
Yeah, there's no space for creation in everything. And everything is everything.
That's right.
Creation is made in the void, in the vacuum.
Yeah, that's right. So for the next over the next 4 years, he really helped me become the husband that I was proud to be, a dad. He helped me get the business organized. He helped me negotiate my partner out of the business in a way that he was very happy to depart. And then he helped me negotiate the sell of that business. And then he said, look, man, you really ought to think about coming and doing this work with me. You probably do really well at it. And so that's what I did. I accepted the invitation and just started working with founders that were in a similar scenario as me. And then that it continued to expand. And now I'm still partners with him today.
Amazing story, man. So it sounds like, to kind of shift gears a little bit, and thank you so much for sharing that story. That was super powerful story. Yeah. There was like moments where I was like, oh, you know. So you had an exit. Yep, you had an exit because one of the things that we're going to talk about today, and so now we have the backstory of you being a founder and how you got to the place of being a coach. You got to the place of being a coach because you were a founder who experienced, multiple failures in the process of being a founder. Got to a place where, in this journey, you had to come to realize some very difficult truths where your priorities got in order. And in the process of getting your priorities in order, you also went through the journey of having an exit. Is that where you have come up with this, the understanding of the challenge that founders are not prepared or don't realize that an exit will be a crisis?
Partly, yeah. I mean, I lived it, right? And I don't know how much clarity came in that exact moment of living the experience. Or I've now, helped a number of founders navigate an exit. And I think that's when it really started to solidify, and I could take my own experience and apply it to that. And that's when I really started to realize that this idea that founders and the world of business, and especially tech, they talk about exit like it's the golden calf, man. And everything in your life and everything in your world is going to be
I'm guilty of this, by the way. I'm totally. I mean, the whole podcast is about exit because that is really. I mean, it's we've talked about how it's a badge of honor, how it shows that it's, especially if you've had a good exit, it shows that an entrepreneur is capable or it can. People list how many exits they've had, so yeah, that's interesting. Okay. I feel like my mind is going to be shifted here a little bit. Please continue.
Well, I mean, it's when we build anything up like that, as if it's one thing. And this is what I invite people to do, is to dance into nuance, not dance into it, dance in it, in the nuance of everything that happens. Look, there are really amazing, beautiful things about an exit. Shit, look what you did. Look what you built. Look what you brought into the world. And then the market came to you and said, wow, this is really valuable. We're willing to pay some multiple of what you have here because we believe in you. We believe in what you've built, and we believe in the value that it's making in the market. That is really cool. Now, the problem is that's all people talk about. That's the only frame. And then I'm on a call, on multiple calls with founders who are facing the unknown of who they are. And the dark, dark question for most of them at this moment is, what's next? And the reason that ends up being a dark question, especially for first-time exiters, is what if it was all a fluke? What if I got lucky? What if I built this thing for 5, 6, 7, 8 years and I've got all these people looking at me and have all these expectations of what I can do in the world, and I go out of this and I can't build anything else? Who am I?
Yeah, that's what we talk about so often on the podcast too. It was like, the loss of identity.
Yeah. Most founders aren't thinking about that. Look, when you're exiting, you know just as well as I or better, that the amount of things you have to consider at the moment of exit is astronomical. And my job when I work with founders that are exiting is to make some room for them to start to explore who they are, what their worth is outside of the exit, outside of the company, and outside of whatever is next.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear a little bit, about specifically in terms of, sounds like you have met founders in the exit process. Tell me a little bit more about that. What does that look like?
Like, how do they find me, or how do I meet them, or what does it look? What do I observe?
What do you observe when you find them? What do you do with them? What do they need to know? What, for anyone that's listening to this, that's contemplating an exit, like if you could warn them a little bit, give them.
Well, at first I would say, don't buy the idea that an exit is the only sign of success. Like, just don't buy it wholesale. Like, do some soul searching for yourself. Maybe you like building. Maybe you love the thing that you've created and you could be happy here for a while. Doesn't mean your role's not going to shift. It's going to shift drastically, but it already is anyway if you're to the point of an exit. So that's the first thing, is when I find somebody who is looking towards an exit, the first question I ask them is are you sure? I'm not just going to take it as a given. I want to, because when it happens and they find themselves in the crisis of an exit, I want them to have chosen that, not something that they were handed and were told that this is the only way that you show your value in the world as a founder. I know lots of founders that stick with their company for a really long time and find a ton of success and excitement in that, and are a huge gift to that. So that's usually my first question. The first conversation I want to have with them is, tell me why. Why do you want to exit?
Do you find that they've often thought about it, or no?
No. I think that's the problem. That's why I love the concept of your podcast, man, is that, like, people need to talk. I think people need to be talking much more about this as it is an option. It isn't the only option. And I'll also tell you, man, I think the idea of exponential growth has some real, it's doing some damage to some people. And the only way you get an exit is exponential growth.
Yeah.
Not the only
I was like,
but
the other kind of side of things is also the founder that's like being crushed by their, like, similar to you, being crushed by the business and sees no other option than, I need to get out of this thing. Is like
right on.
A happy exit. Like, if you can get exponential growth exit, like, that is probably the best case scenario exit. Worst case scenario is, oh my God, get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I'm not usually involved in those scenarios, so it's a great reminder for me. I'm typically involved in the ones where they've really proven the brand and the product in the market, and now they're being,
which is kind of funny because I feel like the get me the fuck out of here people probably need you, if not more than more like happy exit people.
Sure, I would agree. Maybe. I don't know about more. There's certainly it has its own challenge to it. They're just, so many of them are in such survival, which, we know our survival brain is our fight and flight amygdala. And when we're in that space, we don't see resources, or we don't see the potential for resources. So me or anybody who does the work that I do don't show up as an option, because that's a conversation about resource rather than survival.
And they probably could have used you before they got to that place, because you also help founders, find freedom in their businesses, and that's usually what they need.
100%.
And then it becomes a last resort, because if they don't come out from under the business, what's going to happen is the business is not going to exist anymore.
Yep, that's right.
But to circle back, so the first question is why do you want it?
Yeah. Tell me what you see in this. What's your vision? What's your aim? Because that's the thing that they're going to need to come back to when it shows up like a crisis, when they have all that self-doubt about, oh, can I do this again? Or where should I put my focus? We do an entire training in Italy every year called Icon, and it's just around this challenge only. It's for founders who have exited and they are facing that crisis. So once they're clear on their vision for the exit, once they understand why they're clear on why they're doing it, how it may go, then we start talking about what will this experience be like? What challenges will there be, do you think? What will you have to face? What doubts will come up? What fears will come up? And often that conversation is really well served to bring them back to them founding this company in the first place, because they forget that they had to face all that shit to found this thing. And just because they've seen some success, just because they've proven that they can do it, does not mean that all that internal dialogue is gone. It may have been silenced for a little while because, look, man, running a company is a high. And so some of that stuff may have been put away for a little while, but it's going to come back up in this time of transition, in this time of, that's why I call it crisis. Like crises, like interruption, right? And in crises, we see the worst of people and we see the best of people. And so I just want to get clear with them, like, what do you think is going to challenge you in this? What do you think is going to come up for you? And how do you want to prepare for that? How do you want to be in that? Some of it you can't prepare for, but you can decide who you're going to be in it. Are you going to stay connected? Are you going to stay resourceful? Or are you going to recluse? Right? And that's part of that's what's so powerful of having somebody like me in their corner through that process, because I can continue to invite them out of that desire to like draw back, coast, all of that.
And so the alternative, I would imagine recluse part is the vision that I think a lot of people who are considering exiting is like going to the island, golfing all day, like those sorts of things, which usually, the story that we often hear is they do it for like a month, they do it for 2 months, and then they're like, this sucks. So let's paint a picture of what the alternative really can be in terms of like your experience. What have you kind of seen in that respect? It's either that or they go back to, that kind of like the wheel, right? So they're recluse.
Yeah.
They can't do that anymore. Then they just go back to what they know, which is just building. So is there a third option?
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's my whole invitation. Even it doesn't matter if they're in an exit or they're still active founder, CEO, or if they're, whatever. My invitation to people is get out of the extremes. The invitation is, it doesn't have to be black or white. When you exit, you don't have to go lay on a beach for 2 months sipping Mai Tais, because that's when all that fear and doubt and all that stuff's going to creep in. And you just don't like that. Let's be honest with ourselves. Like if you founded a company that was successful enough to be acquired, you like to work, you like to create, you thrive on bringing something into the real world and making a difference. That's a really beautiful thing. I think that's a really beautiful thing. So it doesn't have to be the extreme of like, I'm never going to work again. And it doesn't have to be the extreme of, well, I'm going to forget everything else and grind this thing out all over again. It's an invitation to a new way of being, which was such a gift. That was the gift I was given from my partner, Adrian, which was just like, look, man, your extreme way of looking at this sabotaging your success. If you could pull back and know that there is enough time, there's enough money, there is enough resource, and you don't have to prove yourself to anybody, then we can find some sort of mixture of it all that really works for you. My practice is focused on, I call them family-focused founders, people who are clear that they can have both. And that it's, the grind mentality or the I'm never going to work mentality is really a scarcity mentality. They're two sides of the same coin to me.
The recluse on the island a scarcity mentality?
Because that's it. That's all. There's only one thing. By the way, I don't know anybody who attempts that isn't fucking miserable.
True.
And so I know if there's misery, there's probably an element of scarcity in there, because abundance is love, and abundance is, and I don't mean this in a woo-woo sort of way. I mean this in like, if you live out abundance, you will live in love, because there will be enough love for you. If you live out abundance, you will have enough money. You will have the things taken care of you want to take care of, because money will just, it will be what it is. Like, that's a weird way of saying it's not clear. What you have will be enough. And so anytime anybody's like in this despair, I know there's an element of scarcity in that. And I bought this t-shirt every single day. They're all hanging up in my closet. Scarcity. Like, I'm there. I'm not saying I'm not. It is my experience with it. It is my wrestle with it that can help me help people with it.
Can you say more? What you said, you bought the t-shirt. What do you mean by that?
It's mine. Like, you spot it, you got it, right?
You're
like,
wearing the scarcity t-shirt yourself. Yeah.
I've lived it out.
So your thing is dancing in the nuance. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. So what could dancing in the nuance look like? Hang out on the island, and I'm still about like building things. And so why is that so hard for people? It seems relatively common sense.
Well, that is a good question. I think it's a very philosophical question that I love to play with. And I don't know that there's an exact right answer, but we tend as human beings to be this way in a lot of different areas of our life. Politically, socially, we look for the black and white extremes because I think it's because we make up that there's safety and security in it. Like, it's a shortcut to identity and meaning.
It's interesting because I would imagine what ends up happening is, right? It's like you try to escape and, live a life of 24/7, 365 vacation. You find that you can't do that. You go back to grinding, and then that doesn't work either. And so you keep bouncing. Yeah, the pendulum swing, and it always comes back to, okay, well, what are the priorities? And
that's right.
Yeah.
That's why I wear this hat. Those who are listening that can't see me, I wear a hat every single day that has an ampersand
on it. Tattoo on it.
Yeah, exactly. That's my own reminder. This is for the people who are talking to me, because the opportunity, even in every scenario, it's helpful to have a conversation about the end, right? Even if you go to, this is a good example. I'll use this one. My wife went to the physical therapist the other day, and this new office, she'd never been there before. And she went in, and the front desk girl was, in her perspective, very rude to her. Just short, cold, didn't tell her what was going on, just not a lot of dialogue, and just not much interest in her. And so she's relaying this, and this is not for me to throw her under the bus. I have plenty of, this one's just fresh, right? I have plenty of things like this myself. So she's telling me this story. I asked her that evening, hey, how did the physical therapist go? And she told me the story about the girl at the front desk. And she was certain that the girl didn't like her or didn't care about her. And I don't do this with my wife because that would be a recipe for disaster. But what I wanted to say, if I was with a client or if I'm paying attention and I'm in a conversation with myself, I would ask myself, and what else might be possible? Is it possible that she just got news that her mom is diagnosed with stage 4 cancer? Is it possible that her husband or boyfriend asked for a divorce or breakup this morning? Is it and what that does is it gets me into a conversation about, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's more available than I'm seeing, which there always is, by the way. don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but there is always more than what you are seeing. But if you approach life with that question, I wonder what else is possible. And then you can start to explore possibilities and opportunities that you never considered before. And that can open up new conversations. It can open up new relationships. It can open up whatever, right? It's like, I'm sure you've had experiences like this in your life, Omeed, when you've thought something is one way and all you could see was that, right? Because we're meaning-making machines. Our brains are wired to prove what we've already decided to be true until we interrupt it and say, no, there's more out there. I'm missing something. I have myopic view, meaning I can only see what's in front of me at times. There's so much more on the horizon. I wonder what it is. And I wonder who could show me or at least invite me to see it. That's what I love about my work is like people come to me and they think I have the answer. And then they're shocked because I tell them I don't have your answers. I don't. So if you want to hire me for an answer guy, somebody just tell you what to do, keep looking. There's plenty of guys out there who will do that. I have the questions. I have the questions that will make you reconsider the narrative that you've made up. Carl Jung says, the greatest question we can ask ourselves is, what myth am I living? What? That's what it was for me. I mean, that's what Adrian opened up for me. It's like, hey man, what myth are you living?
That's the meaning-making machine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I see the dots really connecting here in terms of the myopic view is also specifically related to the I am everything.
That's because all I can see is me.
And that's why the I am nothing mind becomes incredibly important because it's starkly contrast. Again, two sides of a coin. Usually there probably is maybe like a deep fear of I am nothingness. And so that space is filled with the I am everything. And also it feels good to be everything as well and doesn't necessarily feel that great. You know, it's very nebulous and scary to be nothing.
Yeah, which is the experience of an exit. Because most founders have made up that they are everything to this organization.
Their whole life is created around it in terms of, you know, it's the muscle memory, it's the showing up and, you know, doing the same things. There's a lot of love wrapped in there of, you know, the creation. There's the importance of the role of who you are. There's the recognition of, you know, the industry, the niche that you fought so hard to carve out through, you know, the product market fit process and the iteration and, you know, the road shows and the scale,
the LinkedIn title,
all of it. That is the everything.
Yeah. And you're going to have an exit, which is you're going to go from being quote unquote everything for that organization to being nothing again.
And even for the people that don't have happy exits, the I am everything is actually still the issue as well.
Yeah, if not more. Yeah, man. We make ourselves out to be so significant when we're not. In fact, the less significant we become, the more successful it can be.
And it's a hard thing to hear. Yeah.
Can be. Yeah. It's actually quite freeing to me because in the work that I do with founders, I have the privilege and the honor, and I see it as that every single day. I cannot believe that I get to do this. I can't believe that I get to do this. And I know that if I make myself something in it, meaning I am the one creating the transformation. I am the one making the difference. I am. That's a house of cards that is going to crumble really fast. But I am nothing. Like it's interesting. I was writing up a LinkedIn post the other day. I didn't finish it yet, but I'm going to come back to it and finish it. I challenged myself to write 100 LinkedIn posts over the next 100 business days, right? And so I'm working on that, and I started writing one, and it's really interesting because I have this experience often where clients will tell me, you made such a difference in my life, or you transformed me. And I'm always really very, very maniacal about saying, and they think it's weird, but it's very important to me about saying, no, you transformed you. Because if it's me, then you're going to need me or somebody like me again when you're up against it again. So I need you to know that you did this. You created it. You did the work, because that's the only thing that's going to be sustainable for the future.
That's why you're not the answer guy.
That's right. That's right. Because if I gave them the answer, then they need another answer in 2 or 3 years.
So outside of the exit process, let's talk about like when typically founders find you.
I call it at the moment of a crossroads, which is illustrated in my story, right? I was at a crossroads. I knew in my mind, the crossroads for me was, love this thing that we've built, think we're doing think we have some magic here, but it's not working, and I can't sustain it. So what that looks like to me at the moment is either I choose to go left, which is continue life the way I've been continuing it or doing it, or to go right, which is walk away from it, shut it down, sell it, whatever, blah, 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 right? Those extremes show up again. That's all I could see. And that looks like a T in the road. And I'm saying actually it's a 4-way. There are, or a multiple way. There's so many more options. You just don't see them because of all of the narrative that you have going about the situation that you're in. No problem. Superhuman. That is the human experience. So founders find me when they look like they are between a rock and a hard place. And that could look like a million different things. I coach a ton of partners and have over the past. I really love coaching and working with partners because, man, so much is at stake. It's a high stakes negotiation between two people who have founded a company together, and now they're at an odds in some way or another. And that's really fun for me. They probably wouldn't describe it as fun, but it's a blast for me because whatever the outcome is going to be, I know it's going to be transformational for both of them. They just can't see that yet. So it can be partnership challenges. It can be stuck in revenue challenges, and they can't figure out why they can't break some sort of revenue ceiling. And by the way, it's never the market. Sorry, it's just not. And or it can be a lot of times it's people, like team, reports, leadership team. They're not getting the performance from the leadership team that they think is necessary in order to see the growth that they want to see. That's probably the most common where founders find me. Being a founder is a very interesting experience because you're a visionary and an idea person. And most people, when they take their ideas to market, they don't realize that if this thing is successful, I'm going to turn into a leader of humans. So what they right. So what they think is like who they are is like they're innovative, right? They're creative. They are smart in marketing, or they're a programmer that has a really cool idea for a software, something like that. And this isn't, by the way, there's certain points in each business that I've identified as crisis. This is one of the early crises is when a founder realizes that they're not an inventor, but they are, or a marketer, but they are actually a leader of people. Because in order to do anything significant to grow it beyond themselves, it involves other people. And then guess who's at the helm? It's just funny, right? It's just funny to like pull up out of it maybe 10,000 feet, just say, wow, that's a really funny thing, because these people think they're starting something where they just get to go and invent and, market and toy with push these buttons, pull these levers, and then all of a sudden come these complex human beings that have to help them get it done, and that can be really jarring.
And so they find you in these different crises stages, and so is the work look the same? The question of why and what could it look like? Are those like kind of the same?
Absolutely. I mean, first we have to get clear on vision. We have to set a vision. And it has to be like, the way I talk about vision is being able to talk about the future like it happened yesterday. And if we can get that, then, well, let me say this. If we can't get there, or if they don't have that and they're unwilling to get that, I can't help.
And why would they be unwilling, or why could they not get there? It sounds like you said it before.
It's risky to set a vision, man. I would say a good portion. I don't know how. I don't have facts to back this up, but I would say the majority of founders or entrepreneurs do not have a clear vision.
Do they think that they?
They just did something cool and worked hard.
Do they think that they had a clear vision though? Like, is there a misconception there? Because I think a lot of founders
could be
think of themselves as visionaries.
Sure. Yeah. Language is my work, right? Language is the window to the soul. That's not some nice little butterfly thing. It's like for you, Omeed, the only insight that I have to go what's going on up here and in here. Sorry, we're on a podcast. I'm pointing to my head and my heart. The only way for me to know what's going on for you, and I can't even know. It's only a clue. It's only a invitation to a conversation, is the language that you use, because the world occurs to us in language. It's really, I was listening to this. Oh, this is so good, man. But it's way too deep for me. But I was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day, and he said, everything in this world is a micro narrative to us. It's a micro narrative. So this computer in front of me, it's not a computer up here. It's a micro narrative. It has a story. Its utilization is what I relate to. And then that's going to be that narrative is manifest in the language that I use. So I'm trained to listen to your language in a way that I'm looking for patterns of omission and emphasis. And what you omit and what you emphasize give me clues into what might be happening, what micro narratives might be happening in your brain and in your heart. And that's really fun. And I don't remember why I went here, but you asked about, maybe they don't understand what a vision is, or maybe they think they have a vision. Sure, that's fine. But I can know like that when I hear their vision, if it's a vision or if it's hope or if it's something they've been fed or if it's something they really believe in and they're committed to, like, no matter what. And that's what I'm gauging. And if they're unwilling to get to the place where it's specific and clear and they're committed to no matter what, then I can't help. I can't help. But if they're there, fun. Because now we have a ball game. Now we can play in a way that I can ask questions that question the narratives that they've got around this thing and how it's going to be achieved. And I always tell them in a discovery call, I'm going to get so ridiculously committed to what you say you want, aka vision. I'm going to get so committed to that you're going to hate me at times. You're going to be so annoyed by me because I won't get off of it. You cannot get me off of the vision. And we're going to have an argument, you and I. And the argument is this. You're going to argue for all your limitations. I'm going to argue for all your possibilities. And then you get to decide who wins.
Woo!
And it's annoying, man. Look, it is. It's annoying to have somebody there that is consistently inviting you to be accountable to your beliefs and how they relate to your vision. It can be really annoying. But when success happens, when alignment happens, you're really thankful for it.
So how we got here is we were talking about when founders find you in these crisis stages, where you start is vision. Is there more?
Yeah, there's lots more.
Is there like a 5-step? No
5-step. There are methods that I use in order to stay connected to the vision, right? I mean, these methods might look like one-to-one coaching sessions. Those are all based on what's currently happening for them. And then we take a look at what we're making up about what's currently happening, what resources are we not employing, all of that sort of stuff. So that could be one thing. Sometimes it's group coaching. Sometimes it's team on-site, off-site work. That's really powerful. Typically we start with the founder or a couple members of the leadership team to really help them get squared away on the language and clear for themselves what the vision is for them and the team. And then we get together with the whole team and we employ games and exercises and all of that sort of stuff to really bring up to. Then those are bullshit. Like, those have no value alone. The value in those, and this is where most coaches and consultants miss it, is they think the value's in the exercise. The exercise is stupid. It's like a bunch of people in a room pretending to do something, right? Acting out some scenario. What's valuable is what it brings up. And if we don't properly explore what it brings up, individually and on the team, then we missed a huge opportunity. The games are just a way to recreate the outside world. Right? Because sometimes the things in the outside world are a little too touchy at the moment, or we can't recreate that in the room with all the emotion and all of the, all of that sort of stuff. But so I would say, to answer your question, there's a lot of methodologies that I use. There isn't a 5-step plan. And for the purpose of being is that's a prescription. As soon as there's a prescription, we start to categorize people and put them in boxes and try to make them fit the prescription that we've already created. And there's danger in that. I don't want my work to get to the place where I see everybody in the same box. And so it's entirely a conversation and it's customized. I've got hundreds of tools in my belt that I can bring out at any moment, but I don't know what one's going to come out until I'm with you.
Yeah.
What you thinking?
There's a lot of different directions for this conversation to go. But I think, one of the ways that we started this conversation was you do have something to offer for people in terms of a free guide, right? So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I would say, this is just my own interpretation of life experience. I would say one of the most challenging parts of transformation, when I say transformation, all I mean is transforming something, right? Like moving it, taking something and molding it into something new, right? So the things that we don't want in our lives, the things that are hindering us, like some people call these limiting beliefs, I actually think those are just transformers. They're just things to take that are currently operating in a utility for you, and they can be transformed into a new utility, right? So, because honestly, they're not going anywhere very fast. I promise you, that's human nature. So many of these things are written into our bones from millions of years ago. And so I put together a guide that are the 5 most common beliefs that founders hold that kill their scalability. Now, when I talk about scalability, I'm talking about scaling their impact. I'm not talking about scaling revenue. So I am talking about those things, but those are a symptom of their impact, right? The income, the growth, the team size, the blah, 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 all the things that they're trying to scale out into their division, all of that is that they're trying to scale out into their team and into their company are a symptom or a result of their impact. And these 5 beliefs kill the opportunity in order for founders to scale that impact to their team. So I just identified those. It's a really short, sweet little thing, and it identifies the belief. So we get the awareness there. It outlines the symptoms of the belief, because most people don't know they have one of these beliefs, but they could identify the symptoms of the belief. So it has the belief, the symptoms, and then how to start down thinking about how you would transform this belief into something that's useful. We don't want to get rid of it. That's a fool's errand. It's not going to happen, but we can transform it. We can use it for what we actually want.
And this guide will help people find scalability in terms of how did you define scalability? Because it could be revenue, but it sounds like it's impact. And so what is impact?
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that if you're in a position where your revenue isn't where you want it to be, if it's not scaled to where you want to be, that's not a result of anything other than you haven't made the impact with your team that you want to or that you need to. That's what I mean by impact. What difference are you making? What invitation are you living for people? Because if you live the right invitation, the revenue will take care of itself.
All right, I got to take a look at this guide, man. I'm gonna go download it. Actually, genuinely, for all the people that are listening out there, we're going to have a link to the guide in the description. If it's for YouTube, it'll also be, you can also find it in the description for Spotify and iTunes, which is all the places that you can find the podcast. And you'll also be able, it's okay with you, Chad. I also will be putting, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, if you want your email in there as well. Cool. So sure. Yeah, there'll be all the various different ways that you can get in touch with Chad in the description below or in wherever the description is below, above, whatever.
Yeah. And if you can't click the link, it's the link is 5founderbeliefs.com/PDF. 5founderbeliefs.com/PDF.
Very cool.
So,
Chad, thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Great conversation. I got a lot out of this, and I got a lot of things to think about myself. I was sitting here and that's where I like.
Yeah. It's convicting for me too, man.
Yeah.
100%.
So cool. Well, for all the listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of SaaS Buyers Club. Hopefully you got a lot out of this. If you listened, you probably did. And join us again next week for another episode. And make sure you follow, subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. Appreciate you being here. Thanks so much.